I woke up Monday morning to find my HOA president had built a fence blocking my only road access overnight. She wanted $300 monthly to use her private road. Big mistake. What she didn't know was that her entire neighborhood would soon need my driveway for parking. Before you watch complete story, comment down your country name, from where are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. My name is Mike Chin and I live in Greenwood Estates, a quiet suburban neighborhood outside Phoenix. I'm a 34-year-old software engineer who bought my house 3 years ago specifically because it had the longest driveway on the street. Perfect for my classic car collection and weekend mechanic work. The house sits at the corner of Pine Street and Oak Drive, with a curved driveway that could easily fit 8 cars. My neighbors always complimented the landscaping and the way I kept everything neat and organized. Life was good until Patricia Williams moved in next door. Patricia, 47, recently divorced, moved from California with an attitude bigger than her oversized SUV. Within a month, she got herself elected HOA president by promising to restore property values and community standards. In Patricia's world, that meant making everyone else's life miserable. The trouble started when Patricia decided that Pine Street was too narrow for safe traffic flow. Never mind that we'd all been using it for years without problems. She convinced the city to designate it as a private community road under HOA management. That's when the fees started. $50 monthly for road maintenance. Then $75 for security improvements. Soon it was $150 for enhanced community services that nobody could identify. But I paid them, trying to keep the peace. Last month, Patricia announced that road access would be restructured for optimal community safety. Translation: she was installing a gate system that required monthly access fees of $300 per household, plus a $500 security deposit. I attended the HOA meeting to voice my concerns. The community center smelled like stale coffee and frustrated homeowners. 23 residents crammed into folding chairs, listening to Patricia's PowerPoint presentation about controlled access benefits. This is about property values, Patricia explained, clicking through slides of other gated communities. Controlled access increases home values by an average of 12%. When I raised my hand to ask about alternative access routes, Patricia's smile turned predatory. Properties that don't comply with the new access requirements will need to find their own solutions, she said sweetly. I went home that night feeling uneasy. My wife Sarah was 8 months pregnant with our first child, and we couldn't afford unexpected expenses. But something about Patricia's tone suggested this wasn't really about community improvement. Monday morning, 6:30 a.m. I was getting ready for work when Sarah called from the kitchen, her voice tight with concern. Mike, you need to see this. I walked outside to find a 6-foot wooden fence blocking the entrance to Pine Street. Overnight, Patricia had installed a complete barrier with her electronic gate system, security cameras, and a fancy metal sign reading "Private Road, Authorized Access Only." My blood pressure spiked. The fence completely blocked my access to the main road. The only way out was through the narrow back alley that connected to Elm Street, adding 20 minutes to any trip. Patricia stood in her front yard wearing silk pajamas and a satisfied smirk, watering plants that didn't need watering. When she saw me staring at the fence, she waved cheerfully. "Good morning, Mike. I hope the construction noise didn't wake you. We finished the security installation ahead of schedule." "Patricia, this blocks my access to Pine Street," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Oh, that's right," she replied with fake concern. "You'll need to submit your access agreement and payment by Friday. Until then, I'm sure you can use the back route." She handed me a manila envelope thick with paperwork. The access agreement was 12 pages of legal terminology that basically said I'd pay $300 monthly plus maintain commercial insurance, submit to property inspections, and agree that any violations would result in immediate access termination. "This is insane," I said, flipping through the pages. "You can't just block public road access." "Actually, it's a private community road now," Patricia said, her smile getting sharper. "The city approved our application last month. You were notified by mail." I never received any notification, but arguing seemed pointless. Patricia had clearly planned this ambush carefully. That morning's commute took 45 minutes instead of 15. The back alley was barely wide enough for one car, unpaved and filled with potholes that made my suspension creak. By the time I got to work, I was already planning my response. That evening, I started researching property laws and HOA regulations. Sarah helped despite being uncomfortable in her final month of pregnancy. We spread documents across our dining room table like we were planning a military campaign. The first discovery was that Patricia had lied about city approval. The road was still classified as public access, but the HOA had filed for private designation without proper notice to affected residents. That was violation number 1. The second discovery was more interesting. Patricia's fence wasn't just blocking road access. It was actually built 3 feet onto public right-of-way. The city has strict setback requirements that her installation violated completely. But the real revelation came when I checked property records online. Patricia's house had a $47,000 lien for unpaid property taxes. She was facing foreclosure within 6 months unless she could pay the back taxes immediately. Suddenly the access fees made sense. Patricia wasn't improving community security, she was desperately trying to generate income to save her house. The $300 monthly fees from 23 households would generate $6,900 per month, enough to cover her tax payments and mortgage. I called my neighbor Jim, who works as a city planner. Over beer in my garage, he confirmed my suspicions about the fence placement and suggested I file a complaint with code enforcement. But Mike, Jim said, there's something else you should know. Patricia's been calling other homeowners, telling them you're planning to fight the access fees and that it might hurt everyone's property values. The manipulation was clear. Patricia was using fear tactics to turn neighbors against me before I could organize any opposition. While researching property laws, I discovered something that changed everything. My corner lot had what's called frontage rights to both Pine Street and Oak Drive. More importantly, my driveway was classified as a private access way that connected to public roads at both ends. The idea hit me while watching Patricia struggle to back her SUV out of her narrow driveway that Tuesday morning. She had to make a 3-point turn every time because her driveway was too short and angled poorly. What if other neighbors had the same problem? What if they needed somewhere convenient to park or turn around? I started paying attention to traffic patterns around the neighborhood. Oak Drive was the main thoroughfare, but it had no parking zones and frequent traffic. My driveway, however, was perfectly positioned for easy access to Oak Drive without dealing with Patricia's gate system. The solution was obvious: turn my driveway into a paid parking area. I spent the weekend researching private parking operations. Turns out, property owners have significant rights to charge for parking access on their own land. The city requires permits for commercial parking, but occasional paid parking falls under residential property use. Sarah was initially skeptical. "Are you sure this won't cause more problems?" she asked, rubbing her pregnant belly while reviewing my research. "It's perfectly legal," I explained. "We're not blocking anyone's access. We're providing additional access for people who want to avoid Patricia's fees." The beauty of the plan was its simplicity. Neighbors could pay me for convenient parking and driveway access instead of paying Patricia for road access. They'd get better service, lower costs, and the satisfaction of not funding her tax problems. Monday morning, I filed for a business license to operate Chin Parking Solutions from my residential property. The city clerk explained that residential parking services require permits but are completely legal as long as they don't create traffic problems. The permit cost $125 and took 3 days to approve. During that time, I researched pricing strategies and talked to neighbors about their parking frustrations. Mrs. Rodriguez mentioned that her teenage son couldn't park on Oak Drive because of traffic restrictions, so he had to park 3 blocks away and walk. "I'd pay good money for closer parking," she said. Tom and Lisa from 2 houses down complained about Patricia's access fees cutting into their retirement budget. "We're looking at moving rather than paying her extortion," Tom said bitterly. The market research was encouraging. Most neighbors were frustrated with Patricia's fees and looking for alternatives. I designed a simple pricing structure. Monthly parking pass, $50 compared to Patricia's $300 road access. Daily parking, $5. Hourly parking, $2. Turnaround service, $1 per use. The driveway could accommodate 6 parked cars plus turnaround space. Even at conservative usage rates, the business could generate $800 to $1,200 monthly revenue. Sarah helped design professional signage using her graphic design skills. We installed tasteful wooden signs that matched the neighborhood aesthetic. Chin parking, convenient, affordable, always accessible. Friday morning, I set up a folding table at the end of my driveway with information sheets and a grand opening free parking today banner. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Mrs. Rodriguez signed up for a monthly pass within 10 minutes. "Finally, somewhere convenient for my son to park," she said, handing me a check for $50. Tom and Lisa took day passes and spent 20 minutes telling me how relieved they were to have an affordable alternative to Patricia's extortion. "You're providing a real service," Lisa said. By noon, I had 12 neighbors signed up for various services. 3 monthly passes, 8 people interested in occasional parking, and 1 request for regular turnaround service. The financial projections were looking better than expected. Conservative estimates suggested $600 to $800 monthly revenue, enough to cover our upcoming baby expenses and build a nice emergency fund. But the real satisfaction was watching Patricia's reaction. She stood in her front yard, arms crossed, watching neighbors cheerfully pay me for parking instead of her for road access. The expression on her face was worth every hour I'd spent researching property laws. Patricia's response was swift and predictable. Monday morning brought a certified letter from Williams Property Management, demanding I cease illegal commercial operations in a residential zone. The letter claimed my parking business violated zoning laws, HOA covenants, and community standards of residential tranquility. It threatened legal action if I didn't shut down immediately. I called the city planning department to verify my permits were valid. The clerk confirmed that residential parking services were completely legal and properly permitted. As long as you're following the permit conditions, you're in compliance with all city regulations, she said. The HOA covenants were more complicated. I requested copies of all governing documents and discovered that Patricia had been creative with the truth again. The covenants prohibited commercial automotive services, like repair shops or car lots, but parking services weren't specifically mentioned. More importantly, the covenants required majority HOA approval for any changes to residential property use restrictions. Patricia couldn't unilaterally declare my parking business illegal. Wednesday evening brought the next escalation. Patricia filed a noise complaint with the city, claiming my parking operations created excessive traffic and disturbed neighborhood peace. The investigating officer, Sergeant Martinez, spent 30 minutes observing my driveway during peak usage. He watched 3 cars park, 2 cars use the turnaround service, and 1 neighbor drop off her teenager. "Ma'am," he told Patricia, "this is less traffic than a typical family generates. No violation here." Patricia's face turned red. "But they're paying him money. It's a commercial operation." "Legal commercial operation with proper permits," Sergeant Martinez replied. "Have a nice evening." Word about Patricia's harassment campaign spread quickly through the neighborhood. Instead of turning people against me, it generated sympathy and additional business. Jenny Wilson, who lived 4 houses down, approached me Thursday morning. "I heard Patricia's trying to shut down your parking business," she said. "That's ridiculous. You're providing a great service." She signed up for a monthly pass and mentioned that her book club was looking for convenient parking for their Tuesday meetings. "Would you consider group rates?" she asked. The book club contract was my first real business expansion. 8 women meeting twice monthly, needing 3 hours of parking each session. I offered a group rate of $30 monthly for unlimited Tuesday parking, and they accepted immediately. Friday brought another boost when Mr. Peterson from the corner house stopped by. He was elderly, had trouble walking long distances, and found Patricia's gate system confusing and intimidating. "Your parking setup is perfect for me," he said. "Right next to Oak Drive, easy access, no complicated gates or fees. Can I get a senior discount?" I offered him a monthly pass for $35, and he paid for 3 months in advance. "It's worth every penny for the convenience and peace of mind," he said. The senior discount attracted 3 other elderly neighbors who were struggling with Patricia's gate system. Word was spreading that my parking service wasn't just cheaper. It was more accessible and customer-friendly. Chapter 9, The Numbers Game. By the end of the first month, Chin Parking Solutions had 23 regular customers and generated $1,247 in revenue. The breakdown was impressive. 8 monthly passes at $50 each, $400. 12 senior monthly passes at $35 each, $420. Book club group rate, $30. Daily and hourly parking, $267. Turnaround services, $130. The profit margins were excellent since my only costs were permits, signage, and basic maintenance. No employees, no equipment rental, no overhead beyond what I was already paying for my property. Sarah was thrilled. "This could pay for the baby's nursery furniture and still leave money for savings," she said, reviewing the financial spreadsheet. But the real success wasn't financial. It was community building. My parking area had become an informal gathering spot where neighbors met, chatted, and shared information. People lingered after parking, talking about neighborhood issues and supporting each other. Meanwhile, Patricia's gate system was failing spectacularly. The electronic gate malfunctioned regularly, trapping residents who couldn't get out for work or emergencies. The security cameras caught vandalism but no actual security threats. Most importantly, only 7 households had paid the access fees. Patricia needed $6,900 monthly from access fees to solve her financial problems. She was generating maybe $2,100 from the few residents who'd paid. The math wasn't working in her favor. Patricia's financial situation was getting desperate, and her behavior was becoming increasingly erratic. She started driving past my house multiple times daily, photographing my parking area and customers. The harassment escalated when she began leaving anonymous notes on cars parked in my driveway. "This property is under investigation for zoning violations," the notes claimed. "Parking here may result in fines or towing." I installed security cameras to document the harassment and collected the threatening notes as evidence. The notes were obvious lies. My permits were current and my operation was completely legal. Tuesday morning brought a new attack. Patricia had called the fire department claiming my parking operation blocked emergency vehicle access. Fire Chief Roberts showed up with a full truck to investigate. "Sir, we need to verify emergency access compliance," Chief Roberts explained apologetically. I walked him through my driveway layout, showing how emergency vehicles could easily access the property with cars parked appropriately. We even did a practice run with his truck, proving there were no access problems. "Your setup actually improves emergency access," Chief Roberts noted. "Having organized parking means we know exactly where vehicles will be, instead of random street parking that could block us." He gave me a written report confirming emergency access compliance, which I added to my growing file of documentation proving Patricia's complaints were frivolous. The next escalation was even more desperate. Patricia started spreading rumors that my parking customers were outsiders bringing crime and drug activity to the neighborhood. The accusation was absurd. My customers were almost entirely neighbors and their family members. But it showed how far Patricia was willing to go to destroy my business and force residents back to paying her access fees. Patricia's repeated false complaints had attracted attention from city code enforcement. But instead of investigating me, they started investigating her. Code Enforcement Officer Janet Phillips called me Thursday morning. "Mr. Chin, we've received multiple complaints about your property, but we're also noticing a pattern of frivolous reports. Can you help us understand what's happening?" I provided Officer Phillips with my complete documentation: permits, financial records, customer contracts, evidence of Patricia's harassment, and the timeline of her escalating complaints. "This is helpful," Officer Phillips said, reviewing my files. "We're also looking into the fence installation that started this situation. There may have been permit violations." The investigation revealed that Patricia's fence was built without proper permits and violated multiple city codes. The setback violations I'd identified were just the beginning. She'd also failed to get electrical permits for the gate system and hadn't followed proper notification procedures for the road access changes. Friday afternoon brought the best news yet. Officer Phillips called to inform me that Patricia was being cited for multiple code violations and ordered to remove the fence within 30 days. "The fence installation was illegal from the beginning," Officer Phillips explained. "The road remains public access and her gate system will be removed. The $2,500 in code violation fines would be added to Patricia's growing financial problems." Her desperate attempt to generate income through road access fees had backfired completely. The news about Patricia's violations spread through the neighborhood faster than gossip at a high school reunion. Residents who'd been intimidated by her gate system and legal threats suddenly felt empowered to speak up. Saturday morning, I found Tom and Lisa at my front door with coffee and donuts. "We wanted to thank you," Tom said. "You stood up to a bully when the rest of us were too scared." "Your parking business gave us an alternative," Lisa added. "That's what broke Patricia's power over the neighborhood." The weekend brought a parade of neighbors stopping by to share their experiences with Patricia's harassment and express gratitude for my parking service. Many had stories of intimidation, unreasonable fees, and threats that they'd been afraid to report. Mrs. Rodriguez revealed that Patricia had threatened to call immigration services if she didn't pay the access fees immediately. "I'm a citizen, but she was trying to scare me with official-sounding threats," she said angrily. Jenny Wilson shared that Patricia had told her book club that I was operating illegally and their cars would be towed if they parked in my driveway. "We almost canceled our meetings because of her lies," Jenny said. The pattern was clear. Patricia had been using fear, intimidation, and false legal threats to control neighbors and extract money. My parking business had given people an alternative, which broke her power. Sunday evening, the neighborhood organized an impromptu block party in my driveway. 25 families brought food, drinks, and lawn chairs. Kids played while adults shared stories and planned how to prevent future HOA abuse. Monday morning brought the inevitable conclusion to Patricia's reign of terror. The fence removal crew arrived at 7 a.m. to dismantle her illegal gate system. I watched from my kitchen window as workers cut down the wooden fence and removed the electronic gate components. Patricia stood in her yard wearing a bathrobe, arguing with the crew supervisor about property destruction and municipal overreach. The supervisor calmly explained that they were following city orders to remove unpermitted structures. No amount of shouting would change the legal requirements. By noon, Pine Street was open again. Neighbors drove through slowly, honking their horns and waving. The taste of freedom was sweet for everyone who'd been trapped by Patricia's scheme. Tuesday brought news that Patricia had missed another mortgage payment and was facing accelerated foreclosure proceedings. Her attempt to generate income through illegal road fees had failed, and now she owed thousands in additional fines and legal costs. Wednesday, I received a certified letter from Patricia's attorney offering to settle all disputes if I would agree to shut down my parking business and pay $5,000 for damages to community harmony. I called my attorney friend Steve, who laughed so hard he almost dropped the phone. "She's trying to get money from you because her own scheme failed?" he said. File that letter under comic relief. Thursday brought the final blow to Patricia's credibility. The local newspaper ran a front-page story about HOA abuse, featuring Patricia's illegal fence and my successful parking business as examples of how communities can fight back against corruption. "Residents fight back against HOA extortion," read the headline, with photos of Patricia's fence removal and my professional parking setup. The article quoted several neighbors praising my service and condemning Patricia's tactics. With Patricia's gate system removed and her credibility destroyed, the neighborhood began healing. The HOA called an emergency meeting to elect new leadership and review all of Patricia's decisions. I attended the meeting held in Tom and Lisa's living room since Patricia was no longer welcome to host meetings. 15 households participated, and the atmosphere was cooperative rather than confrontational. The first order of business was removing Patricia as HOA president. The vote was unanimous among attendees, with only Patricia's vote in opposition. Her replacement was Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd lived in the neighborhood for 12 years and had everyone's respect. The second item was reviewing all fees and charges Patricia had implemented. The group voted to eliminate the road access fees immediately and refund money that had been collected under false pretenses. The third decision was about my parking business. Several neighbors suggested that I shouldn't need to pay HOA fees since my business was providing a valuable community service. "Mike's parking area has become a community gathering place," Jenny Wilson said. "People meet there, help each other out, share information. It's made our neighborhood more connected." The group voted to give me a commendation for improving community accessibility and standing up to abuse of authority. I was honored and grateful for the support. With the neighborhood conflict resolved, Chin Parking Solutions continued growing. Word spread to nearby streets about affordable, convenient parking, and I started getting customers from beyond Greenwood Estates. The book club recommended my services to their friends. The senior discount program attracted elderly residents from 3 blocks away. Local teenagers used my turnaround service when visiting friends in the neighborhood. Monthly revenue stabilized around $1,500, which was substantial supplemental income for our growing family. Sarah gave birth to our daughter Emma 3 weeks after Patricia's fence was removed, and the parking income helped cover medical expenses and baby supplies. The business success felt good, but the community impact was more satisfying. My driveway had become a neutral meeting ground where neighbors socialized, shared resources, and looked out for each other. When the Johnson family needed help moving furniture, people met in my parking area to organize volunteers. When elderly Mr. Peterson had a medical emergency, it was my parking customers who noticed and called for help. The social connections were worth more than the financial benefits. Patricia's house went into foreclosure 6 weeks after her fence was removed. She couldn't afford the back taxes, code violation fines, and legal costs that had accumulated during her failed power grab. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and pity watching the foreclosure notice posted on her front door. Patricia had brought this on herself through greed and dishonesty, but losing your home is still tragic. Her final act of spite was leaving the property in terrible condition. She removed fixtures, damaged walls, and left garbage scattered across the yard. The bank would spend thousands repairing the damage before they could sell. Moving day was awkward for everyone. Patricia loaded her belongings into a rental truck while neighbors avoided eye contact. No one offered to help and she didn't ask. Before leaving, she made one last attempt at intimidation. Patricia approached me while I was collecting parking fees, her face red with anger and embarrassment. "This isn't over," she said loudly enough for customers to hear. "I'll be back and I'll shut down your illegal operation." "Patricia," I replied calmly, "my business is completely legal and properly permitted. Maybe you should focus on your own legal problems." She stormed off and I never saw her again. Later, I heard she'd moved back to California and was working at a call center. Her ex-husband had remarried and wanted nothing to do with her ongoing legal troubles. 6 months after Patricia's departure, Greenwood Estates had transformed from a neighborhood divided by fear into a community united by cooperation. The new HOA leadership focused on actual community improvement rather than power trips and money grabs. Chin Parking Solutions had evolved from a simple revenge business into a legitimate community service. I invested profits in better lighting, security cameras, and weather protection for customers. The parking area looked professional and welcoming. The success attracted attention from other neighborhoods dealing with HOA problems. I started consulting with residents facing similar situations, helping them understand their property rights and legal options. Sarah suggested writing a book about the experience. "Your story shows how ordinary people can fight back against bullies and corruption," she said. "Other families need to hear this." The book idea evolved into a community workshop series about property rights, small business development, and HOA governance. I partnered with the city planning department to offer free classes at the community center. The workshops drew audiences from across the metro area. People shared stories of HOA abuse, property disputes, and community conflicts. Many found practical solutions by learning their legal rights and organizing with neighbors. The experience taught me valuable lessons about community, business, and standing up for principles. Patricia's attack on my property access had been wrong, but it forced me to discover opportunities one never would have considered otherwise. The parking business generated steady income that improved our family's financial security. More importantly, it created social connections that made our neighborhood stronger and more resilient. The legal research made me more knowledgeable about property rights and local government. I understood how city planning worked, what rights homeowners actually had, and how to navigate bureaucratic processes effectively. The community organizing brought neighbors together around common interests rather than artificial divisions. People realized they had more power working together than accepting abuse from bullies with fancy titles. Emma's arrival during the height of the conflict gave me additional motivation to create a better community for her to grow up in. I wanted her to see that ordinary people could fight injustice and win through persistence, knowledge, and community support. The success of Chin Parking Solutions opened doors I hadn't anticipated. The city planning department asked me to join a committee reviewing residential business regulations. My experience with permits and community impact made me a valuable perspective on policy development. A local entrepreneur reached out about franchising the parking service model. He wanted to help other homeowners in HOA-heavy neighborhoods develop similar businesses. We spent several meetings discussing the legal requirements and community relations aspects. The local news station did a follow-up story about neighborhood justice, featuring my parking business and several other successful responses to HOA abuse. The publicity brought new customers and consulting inquiries. Most surprisingly, I was invited to speak at a state-level conference about property rights and community development. Lawmakers were interested in how local conflicts could be resolved through entrepreneurship rather than expensive legal battles. The speaking engagement led to consulting work with 3 other municipalities reviewing their HOA oversight policies. My real-world experience with both sides of property disputes provided practical insights for policy development. 2 years after Patricia's fence blocked my road access, Chin Parking Solutions was thriving beyond my original expectations. Monthly revenue averaged $2,200, and I'd expanded services to include car washing, minor maintenance, and event parking for neighborhood gatherings. The business success was satisfying, but the community impact meant more. Greenwood Estates had become a model neighborhood where residents worked together to solve problems rather than fighting each other over petty disputes. Property values had increased due to positive community reputation rather than artificial restrictions. New residents specifically chose our neighborhood because of the cooperative HOA and community-oriented businesses. Sarah's graphic design skills had evolved into a successful freelance business working with small neighborhood enterprises. Emma was thriving in a community where she'd learned that ordinary people could create positive change through determination and cooperation. The parking area hosted monthly neighborhood meetings, seasonal celebrations, and informal gatherings that kept everyone connected. My driveway had become the unofficial community center, bringing people together across generational and cultural differences. Looking back, Patricia's attempt to steal from her neighbors through illegal road fees had backfired completely. Instead of enriching herself, she'd catalyzed community organizing that made everyone stronger and more prosperous. The final irony came when Patricia's foreclosed house was purchased by a young family with 2 small children. The new owners, Mark and Jennifer Santos, were exactly the kind of neighbors Patricia claimed to want: stable, professional, committed to community improvement. Within a month, the Santos family had become Chin Parking Solutions customers and active neighborhood participants. Mark helped organize our annual block party, and Jennifer joined the HOA board as treasurer. The house that had been a source of conflict and exploitation became a symbol of positive community development. The Santos family's investments in renovations and landscaping improved everyone's property values more than Patricia's manipulative schemes ever could have. Sometimes I park in front of their house and remember that awful Monday morning when I woke up to find my road access blocked. The anger and frustration I felt then had motivated me to fight back, but I never expected the fight would lead to such positive outcomes. Chin Parking Solutions generated over $26,000 in its first 2 years, providing financial security for my growing family. But the real value was proving that individuals could stand up to corruption and create better alternatives through legal, ethical business practices. The story spread through social media and local news, inspiring other families facing similar situations. I received emails from across the country asking for advice about fighting HOA abuse and developing neighborhood businesses. Each message reminded me that Patricia's fence hadn't just blocked my road access. It had opened a path to community leadership, financial independence, and lasting positive change. My advice to anyone facing similar situations is simple. Know your rights, document everything, build community support, and never let bullies profit from intimidation. Sometimes the best response to someone trying to control you is showing them you don't need their permission to succeed. In the end, Patricia got exactly what she deserved: nothing. And my family got something much better than revenge: a thriving business, stronger community, and the satisfaction of turning someone else's greed into our own opportunity. The parking business continues growing, the neighborhood remains strong, and Emma is learning that justice doesn't always come from courts or government. Sometimes it comes from ordinary people who refuse to accept abuse and work together to create better alternatives. That fence Patricia built to trap me actually freed me to discover opportunities one never would have found otherwise. Her attempt to steal from the community ended up making everyone stronger, wealthier, and more connected. Justice served with profit. Drop your own HOA nightmare story in the comments below. What would you charge for parking access? Hit that subscribe button if you love stories where justice gets served with a side of sweet profit.